Go.
Okay.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the What If You Could podcast. And my amazing guest, all the way from jolly old England, is Simon Lee. Hello, Simon Lee.
Hello, Gary. Good to see you.
You too, my friend. I actually love London. I've been there quite a bit, and it's a great city, so we could chat about that too. But I'm going to read your bio real quick, and then we'll get into the important stuff first. How about that?
Sure thing. Let's go.
Kobe. So, everybody, we have Simon Lee. Simon is a veteran coach of over 3 decades for men and teenage boys who have lots of real life inspiration and challenging stories, as well as his own challenging background that led him to becoming a coach. Simon is the author of The Courage Project, which TV presentator Neil Oliver called a powerful call for the urgency of courage, an inspiring read that at times is a necessarily uncomfortable one. Simon has been invited onto national TV several times to talk about his work and unique approach to empowering men and boys towards courage as the primary aim in life. And boy, is that something that we desperately need on both sides of the pond, right? I mean, we definitely need that. But so we're going to jump into that. Before I do, though, I'm contractually obligated by the What If You Could podcast, which is me, to ask you the what if you could question. So, Simon, have you ever had a what if you could moment, or is there a what if you could thought you'd love to share with the gang?
Yeah, it's looking back actually. So what if you could, as a child or as a very young man, realize that life is about courage, love, and integrity very early on and make that your primary aim of life instead of grasping at a future to become something, become someone, and it never arrives. That's my what if.
Well, that is a pretty awesome what if you could. Integrity. Integrity. Do we have integrity in anything anymore?
Well, we get onto this later, but that's why I wrote the book. I think there's a crisis happening of integrity. I think there's a crisis of courage. And if there's a crisis in courage and integrity, there's a crisis of love. Because the only way you can express love is through courage and integrity. So integrity in its original format meant it was called integer, which was the Latin form of meaning integrity. And interestingly enough, in antiquity, they used to believe that if you was a liar and you lacked integrity, you were somewhat mad, you were mentally disturbed. Now imagine if we had that same belief today. That'd be something.
Oh my God. Everyone would be locked up. I don't think they
Absolutely.
lock up crazy people anymore, but I think maybe we need more help for the mentally challenged. Um,
Yeah.
Courage equals love. I mean, I like that because the truth of the matter is, in my thought, my very tiny brain is, you think of courage and you think of protection, you think of stepping up, you think of being the leader. And most of that has to do is because you love something that you're
Mm.
protecting in a way, kind of.
Yes, you're protecting your what means a lot to you in your pursuits and ambitions, but it's also the love of humanity. So when I first started coaching, I used to have guys in the room and I'd talk about love, and you could see them recoil towards the wall, thinking I didn't sign up for this. Yeah, as
We
because
didn't want
straight
any of that woo-woo shit. We didn't
no,
want any of that
no, don't get all
stuff.
sentimental on me, Simon. We're out of here. But when I studied the original Greek concept of love, as in agape, that word agape, which is agape in English, but they called it, it was pronounced agape. It meant for each man to hold every other man to the highest accountability he could, to the highest level of courage and integrity, to be a beacon of light unto himself. Now, when I understood that, I thought, okay, that's a love guys could get on board with. That's a love that guys could think, yeah. So I have to be the beacon of light in my society in order to raise other men up to the highest standard they can match. and hold myself accountable and holding them accountable. Now, when I learnt that, I thought, yes, that makes a lot of sense. So that agape love can then really only be expressed through courage, service, protection, upholding our values, and integrity, not to lie, to look for the truth in everything, and to have your firm aim on how and taking responsibility for what we say, how we behave, and the words we speak. You cannot express love in any other way, otherwise it's just sentimental. If there's going to be an agape love for mankind, it has to be expressed through courage and integrity. It has to be. That has to be the action behind the emotion of love. And that's when it became really, really understandable and actionable for men when they heard that. Their eyes would light up, no matter what age they were. If I can speak to an 18-year-old and talk to him about agape love and responsibility, courage, and integrity, his eyes lights up. They still do. They still come to me, and it's as if they found the holy grail of what they've been looking for, this etiquette, ethics, and behavior, so they can navigate through the world and find meaning within it by understanding what their responsibility is as a man. And boy, is it needed now. Is it needed? I mean, we're going through I can't speak for America, Gary, but maybe you can tell me. But I can say in Europe and the UK, we've got a societal rot going on, a moral degradation happening, and it's very serious. And men are stepping down. Men are let me put it one way, I think, to explain it. I think men are so uncertain of who they are now. They've chosen two swings opposite sides of the pendulum. So on one side, you've got a load of coaches going, get power and money and wealth at all costs. You know, be this kind of fake alpha male where you're just grasping at money and power. And then you've got the other swing of the pendulum, which is be quiet, be suppressed, be still. Don't make any ripples. And both of them are reaction to each other. They are one side, the extreme side, is looking at the other, thinking, "Well, I don't want to be like that." And the other side's looking at them, thinking, "Well, I don't want to be like that." So they're both reactional mindsets, which means if you're reacting, you've lost yourself anyway, because you've gone down that pathway of a reactional mindset. So it's a little bit like a Taoism. It's the middle ground. It's in between the two. The masculinity is being able to feel and also take action from a level of courage. And I love the Victor Hugo quote where he said, "Those that weep, let's get this right, those that do not weep do not see." So he was talking about the feeling heart of the warrior man that's allowed to feel. He sees the injustice of the world and he acts upon it. I love quotes like that. There's so many, but it gives an idea of that middle ground.
You've got some great quotes on your website. Um, but I want to step back a second because you opened up so much there. And America, trust me, I mean, although, the UK is tiny in comparison, really. I mean, size, population, things like that. But now times the UK by 100. I mean,
Mm.
it's really tragic what's happening here. But I want to touch some of the things that you talked about. And I think fear kept coming into my brain as you're talking about the truth and service and values. I think men have a lot of fear right now. And I don't think men, speaking for myself, having fear my whole life, I don't think men have a very good outlet to express fear because we're not allowed to be fearful, right? It's not manly to be fearful. How much do you think fear right now is involved with a lot of what you just talked about?
It's we've got a pyramid graphic on our website somewhere. I can't remember where it is now, but we've got at the bottom of our pyramid, there's the foundation of character. We have compassion, courage, and integrity. But the middle part, we've got fear and suffering. And
Mm,
at the top, we've got obedience and conformity. So fear is
mm.
unavoidable and suffering is unavoidable. But what we can decide to do is how we're going to interpret that fear and what we're going to use it for. And I think Mike Tyson's trainer, Customano, summed it up when he said, "Fear is the friend of exceptional people." I love that saying. It's just so
I
great.
love that.
Yeah, it's such a great saying from an old warrior because he knew once you understand fear, it will become your friend if you interpret it the right way to go forward and not to run away and constrict and retreat. So yeah, I think fear is that it's got two forces, isn't it? It's one pushing you forward and one pulling you back. And it's like the unknown. It's like a mist in front of you. You think, well, it's terrifying. Should I go forward? But actually, all you've got to do is master the physical sensation of fear. If you really look at it, all you're trying to master is the physical sensation. And that's what paralyzed me very young. Because when I went into the boxing clubs and when I went to do anything outside of my comfort zone, my legs would shake, my voice would go weird, and my heart rate would go up. And I thought those feelings were unique to me. I thought, well, that's just me that feels. Everyone else is fine. It's just me that's got this something wrong with him that I can't take action because I've got these physical feelings. But it was my own boxing coach who said, just try and master that feeling in you. Don't look at it as negative. He said, it's just a physical feeling. He said, you'll get desensitized to it the more you feel it. And that for me was a huge one. I have had the privilege of being trained by some were legends in the different martial arts, and they taught me so much. But most of it was about fear. It was about fear. They said, forget the story. It's just a physical sensation. Focus on the physical sensation. But sometimes it's short term, sometimes it's long term, isn't it? You can wake up in the morning and, like most people do, flip on the radio and say, well, the world's about to end. And you've got this complete build-up of anxiety within you going on at a long rate, and it can be paralyzing. It takes your eye off the ball of what's really meaningful to you and what you actually want to pursue and what you want to do. But yeah, I think the physical
You know,
feeling.
and that has so much to do with control. They
Mm,
love to pump the fear. They love to pump the fear. I mean,
yeah,
especially now, fear of everything, fear of politicians, fear of World War III, fear of climate crisis, fear
it's all
of
there.
everything, right? So this control, using fear to control. But like, some of the great warriors, fear was their best asset. They were able to focus that fear. They were able to control the fear, and and that empowered them because, like you said, I mean, especially in military men and war and fighting, hand-to-hand combat, things like that, boxing, if you could use that fear, it's a powerful weapon.
Very much so. And that's what, you say that, Gary, about the media and everything that's going on. It's very true. And what they're trying to do, they're trying to control your physiology. That's really what they're trying to do. But if you master your physiology, if you master your own fear, they've got nothing left. I mean, I know that sounds extreme and a really strong opinion, but if you master your own physiology, if you've mastered your fear, they've got nothing left. They really haven't.
And that
So,
and that and that's their biggest fear. Guys like you is their biggest fear because when people turn it off, they stop listening, they look inward instead of outward, and they start taking control of what they can control, which is what you're teaching. That's their biggest enemy because then they lose control. So they turn it up just another notch and just another notch. They don't want empowered people like what you're
no,
building, right? That
no, they
that's
don't.
their enemy.
Well, I expect that, Gary. I think the further I progress, the more resistance I'm going to get and the more attacks that will come my way. It's inevitable. Because the last thing any government wants is strong, courageous men that are going to dictate what they do and what they feel is right. They're not going to want that. The whole system is set up not to be that. So it's yes.
Well,
But
in
I say,
America, I mean, you kind of talked about UK and America, but in America, boy, I'm going to kill a lot of shit for this, but I don't care. I mean, the feminization of men is beyond anything people have seen, and I think it got so, like you talked about the pendulum, it got so far the other way because we're a live and let live society like Britain. We don't care. You do whatever you want. No one cares. But I think when it pushed it so far that that's when I think people stood up. And I think that's what we're starting to see more. I know here, I don't know about the UK.
yes, definitely. I think I just get the feeling that America are a little bit more actionable on this than the UK. We've got a really serious problem in the UK. I feel it's worse. That's only by speaking to guys like yourself, but I feel it's worse. Let me let me explain a bit more. I see a lot of school children. Their parents bring them to me, or the mums bring them to me and say, little Johnny's having a hard time at school, and when I speak to the children, they say to me that all they get used at school is guilt and shame. So they're just weaponizing guilt and shame against these young lads. So they have lessons on toxic masculinity. The police come into the schools and give lessons on you shouldn't be violent to women. You have the capability to do that. And there was a little lad called Richard that said to me, they just make me feel like I've done something wrong every time, and I would never do those things. So what they're doing is they're giving them constant criticism, constant condemnation. What they don't do is say, look, this is what you could be. They're never going to teach anything like what I teach in a school because it's just too risky. They're not going to give them empowerment. They're not going to give them inspiration. But all they do instead is just give them guilt and shame. And it's causing really bad problems, not just for school children, but for young men in particular. And they're leaning into me very much at the moment because they're seeing something through our course, the Kingmakers, very different. And I'm basically saying, ignore that. You cannot live your life according to a force would, because eventually it will destroy you. So to look deeper, look elsewhere, and start to forge the kind of society you want to live in, because they're not offered anything anywhere. And we've just had a social justice report released, Gary, in the UK, called The Lost Boys, and it's shocking. It's so sad. When I read it, it crushed me because there's like three-quarters of a particular age group in prison haven't got a dad. Three-quarters of all prisoners in the UK of a certain age group have no father figure. We've had the suicide rates from young men now are just going through the roof. There's learning difficulties. There's guys stepping out, stepping into gangs for connection. Here's an interesting one that I think will interest your viewers. So what they found was young guys who'd had a dad in their life had the same sort of anxiety depression as ones that hadn't. But when they hit 23, 24, the men that had have a good male role model in their life, did very well. But the ones that hadn't had serious levels of depression on a very high rate. And the explanation of that was it's almost as if these young men went out into the world and suddenly realized they had no example to follow. They'd never been mentored by a man, and it crushed them, and they just fell. Um, I like,
At when well, I went pretty deep dive on your website and your training and things like that. And I think what's so empowering about what you're trying to do, and hopefully take it on a global level, but maybe you can clean up the UK. I don't know if it's savable, but I mean, we hope it is. Um, but I mean, it's happening all over, and I don't think it's
mm,
a isolated incident or a coincidence that it's happening at the same time in so many places. But like you mentioned, I mean, when you're born, and you're born a man, and you don't have any things that would create you to not believe that you're a man, right? As as you grow through those beliefs, if they're lionized, if you have, like you said, if you're indoctrinized that that's bad, it's only natural for not only massive confusion, but also self-hate, guilt, uh,
that's a big one, Gary.
not
Self-hate.
not being focused, right? And so you don't have a compass, you don't have a guide. Your moral instincts are being shattered, and it's super tragic right now. And that's why I think what you're doing is so crucial. That's why I'm so looking forward to this. It's very difficult to have courage, right? When you're constantly told that it's bad.
It is. It's very, very hard. And I think when we explain courage, we need to be careful if because what we don't want to say to guys is you haven't got courage, you're going to have to go and find it. I kind of liken it to a Greek masterpiece at an art gallery. And people come in and they look at this statue and they go, I don't like that bit. And they put their own piece on there. And before you know it, the whole statue's covered up. I always say it's a man's job to uncover it, get rid of the conditioning, get rid of everybody's opinion, and restore the original masterpiece. And the reason they need to do that is because I truly believe a man is a king and a healer. And the king side of the man is that he's got that inbuilt responsibility and duty to hold the world to a moral level as a brotherhood of men to the highest level they can, protection, leadership, example, and a beacon of light. The healing, and this is where it gets interesting about what we've spoken about so far, the healing aspect of a man is where he can turn his society around, where he can turn the society world around by his own example. That's where the healing takes place. And only he can do that. So when we say, is there any integrity left in the world? There's no doubt there's a crisis with it, but all we have to do is make a decision to live differently. And we can take on the healing of society, of our world, onto our own shoulders and start to do it. And that's how we can start to change things around. So I truly believe a man is a king unto himself, he's a healer, he's a leader, and a servant, all in one. If they combine together, you've got a powerful idea, an innate capability, I believe, of what a man is and what he can do.
Do you do you think that we have any leaders left? I mean, are there any leaders? Like I love what you said about the statue and when we went to go look at David in Florence, and you read the
Oh
story
wow,
about
I'd love to go there.
David, right? How the stone was always there, and multiple artists tried to do something with the stone, and everyone just said it's a worthless stone, no one wants it. And Michelangelo always knew that David was in there. He's like, I didn't carve him, I just let him free, right? And I just see that with what you're doing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's a great
You
story.
taking these young guys as these stones, right? And you know what these young men and these older men are capable of. So they're there. You're just trying to help maybe expose them, but I don't know how I squirreled off of that, but I do that all the time. But leaders. I mean, do you see any leaders for men, young men, boys to look up to anymore?
That's a great question, Gary. No, I do not. And I think we should stop looking. I think we should stop looking and start from the ground now for our society and create leaders there. We look at the world of celebrity now, what's been going on in the courts with all the stuff that's been going on there with obviously the P. Diddy stuff, and we've got Epstein flight lists, and we've got the way the politicians are carrying on. We've got what are they to look at anymore? What are young men going to? These aren't warriors. They're not mentors. They're not examples. But I truly believe, and I think it was your own, was it? I don't know if it was Benjamin Franklin, so I apologize if I get the person wrong. But there was somebody that said, a country gets the leaders it deserves. I think there is some truth in that. I think when men step down, when they stop being men, then they may just create within themselves the leaders that end up materializing in full view. Um,
I think it was Thomas Jefferson. I mean, we were just
ah,
visiting my son. My
corrected.
love, my it might have been Thomas Jefferson. I don't, but I was just visiting my son in Maryland, and he's just outside of Washington, D.C., and he works in Washington, D.C. And we got to tour the White House, and we got to go through the different museums of Thomas Jefferson and things like that. And you look at these guys and what's happening to them, how they're trying to tear down these men is is barbaric. I mean, you read what these men said about race, about humans, about people, about leaders. They were incredible men, incredible men. And yet, for some reason, we'd rather tear their statue down. We'd rather say, oh, they owned a slave, so they're not viable as humans anymore. Anything that they did now is negated because of
Yeah,
that. Um, and so it's like you said, it's not only are there no leaders, but people don't even want to step up to be a leader because they're just going to get shredded. They're going to be torn down. So we have to become our own leaders, don't we? I mean, isn't that what you're preaching and helping and coaching is we just need to be our own leaders and not look out to other people so much.
I agree. I think it's the only way now. I think we've exhausted everything. It's funny, isn't it weird, Gary, that we speak about people tearing down like great legends and great men in history. We've got the same here. Now, isn't it funny this is happening all over the Western world? It's not an isolated incident, it's happening everywhere. Um, so we've had the same with Winston Churchill. We've had his statue being attacked, and everything he might have done wrong is being criticised, and what he's done right is just not good enough. That's where we're at now. So yeah, I think we have to come back to ourselves.
Yeah. And starting with the youth, I mean, that statistic about fathers is so painful. It's so painful about the fact that so many children, boys and girls, I mean, don't have the father figure. And the fathers that we see now are pretty much giving up. I mean,
Mm.
in America, we see that these men, it's just easier to give in. It's easier to give in. I, it's a really challenging situation because what does that mean for the next generation of children? What does that mean for the next leaders for our countries, our world, our families? And then what is it doing to the kids themselves, right? The men and the boys and the teens that you're working with. I mean, just what's it just doing to them, right?
Yeah, so I think it's one of the most important things in the world at the moment that we can work on, because if the next generation's lost, everything's lost. We got the chance now to restore balance, to turn things around. And that's not just young men, but that's guys that are out there that are already fathers, that are already distant, and maybe they've made some bad decisions. I can't condemn you for that. We all have. But now's the time, because if we don't do it for ourselves, we do it for them. We do it for the future. We do it for the next generation. But what I'm seeing myself is, well, your viewers would be shocked, but I'll share it with you, Gary. And these are not poverty-stricken homes. Everyone says to me, oh, when they hear these stories, oh, is that from a place of real poverty? No, actually, they're men with great money. The bankers in London, very much money. So let me give an example. So I had a father get his son hooked on Class A drugs so he could have a drug partner to do his drugs with. This is all big earners, by the way. They're not in poverty. I've had a guy drag his son across the floor to give him carpet burns and go to the police and say, look what the mother did to get back at her because they had a row. I could go on. I've seen a guy
That's
coming, a
just
lad. Yep.
that's evil. And
Yeah.
and you know what's just as evil, Simon, is the that we are so in the United States, we are so eager to drug our children. We are so eager to jab them full of poisons right out the gate. And then when the poisons make them a little bit off, we want to then medicate them. And then when that medication causes issues, we want to add more medication to that medication. And then you wonder how these kids are so out of balance, right? I mean, I don't know what the UK does, but our pharmaceuticals situation here is beyond evil. It's beyond anything I've seen. I mean, I think I read something to the effect of 60% of teens are on some sort of pharmaceutical. That's insanity.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, it's the same here. I mean, yeah, we've got a serious problem here too. I mean, it's just, and the labeling that goes with it. I mean, I understand people want a reference point, but sometimes, and I've had this conversation with psychiatrists and psychologists around a table, and they can't answer me. I said, so you've diagnosed this child with obsessive compulsive disorder or the ADHD or whatever it may be. How can you differentiate between that child suffering from that condition and the trauma the child suffered as early on? You can't say they were born with that, can you? You can't actually. What you're doing is you're diagnosing a symptom rather than going to the root cause of why they do what they do. And they couldn't answer me. They said, you're absolutely right. I said, so why are you medicating them if you know I'm right? Why don't you go to the root cause and work on that? But what you're doing is you're working on a symptom, and you're labeling them according to a symptom they've got that's just from something that happened to them early on. And that really gets me, because I've seen loads, especially during COVID. I was allowed to keep working because I help these people in need. So I had loads of guys suffering from obsessive compulsive disorder, all kinds of really severe mental health issues from lockdowns through their family breakups that were going on behind closed doors. Um, and they were all heavily medicated. They just went there and they were being diagnosed on their symptoms. Not one of these people said, "Well, hold on a minute, this is due to isolation." So what was happening? How did you feel when you were going through the isolation? So of course, these lads were doing things like they'd pick up a cold object and they couldn't put it down because they found it soothing in their room on their own day after day. Parents losing their jobs because they couldn't work, and so they'd pick something up just to soothe them. But yet none of this seemed to come into it when it was diagnosed by the medical authorities. It was just we just treat that symptom, and it was a huge mistake. And one of the things I do is say to the parents, you know, this is perfectly normal. This was a normal response to an abnormal situation. So before you go drugging them up, let's look at the root cause, look at why they found comfort in what they did, and see if we can get them out of it. And that's very much my approach.
How do you reach how do you reach these kids? I would imagine there's a ton of reluctance by society, the mothers, the fathers, the parents, the schools, the psychiatrists. I'd imagine there's a lot of reluctance for someone who wants to take, young boys and men and try to help them, reset, kind of do what you're doing with them. How do you find them? How do they come to you?
Yeah, that's really insightful what you said there, Gary. There is a lot of resistance, and um, I'm very fortunate. I've been doing this so long. I have built up a great reputation. So there's one of the prestigious streets in London with all the psychologists called Harley Street. So I even get a couple. I think there's one or two there that have referred people to me because they couldn't do anything
Oh,
with them. Plus, I tend to be the last resort when people have exhausted everything else. They bring them to me. But my mission is to actually get them to have a philosophy of courage, integrity, and get this to them early on even before they leave school, preferably, so they can go out there and have a dynamic principled behavior, knowing how to navigate the trials of life through understanding their responsibility and duty, rather than the school saying to them, yeah, I'll be pretty base about this. You have no value until you achieve something through your grades or whether you get some sort of position in society. You have no value. So what I'm saying, I say this to all the guys. I say you have value just for being here. Otherwise, you wouldn't have got here. You're meant to be here. You have value anyway, regardless before you do anything. And that really makes them think, because no one's told them that before. No one's told them you have value just for being here. But there's a duty
I
that
want
comes
to I
with it.
want to touch on something that you said earlier, which is one of my all-time favorite sayings. I think if I ever was to get a tattoo, which I won't, but I think this tattoo would be toxic masculinity. I think I'd just get a big tramp stamp across my ass that just said toxic masculinity.
Well, at least no one would
Because
see
this
it,
is,
Gary.
yeah, hopefully no one would see it, but isn't that the most bizarre? I mean, the rally cry behind we need to take men down a notch because of toxic
Yeah.
masculinity. Isn't that the most bizarre phrase you can wrap your arms around?
And yet it's the most frequent question I'm asked in my work, Gary, is what is Simon's? They write to me, they say, Simon, what is toxic masculinity? I'm concerned about it. It's weird because it's a saying that started on the fringes of social media. I think a girl wrote a blog or something. I may be slightly off on where it came from, but it was either a blog or a social media post, and she called it toxic masculinity. So when I was on TV and when I was talking about this stuff, I really used to rile them up. So I said, there's actually no such thing because it's a lack of masculinity that's toxic. So
Yes.
I've had women say that I should be killed. I've had people calling me all names under the sun on social media, which is crazy because I'm a great champion for women. I believe if I can change men around, it's going to benefit women and children immensely.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
no, the whole toxic masculinity thing is, and now they're doing lessons on it in British schools. It's just bizarre because to me, I maintain there's no
Wait,
such
wait, wait.
thing.
I thought that's what you said earlier. They actually teach toxic masculinity in British schools.
Yeah, they do.
Wow. that is beyond insane. I mean, basically,
Mm,
you're taking 50% of the population and telling them that they have no value, that they're bad, they're evil, they're toxic. What's worse than
absolutely.
toxic? I mean, you look at on the side of radioactivity, radioactive jugs, it says toxic. I mean, every child knows that toxic is bad,
Mm, that's right.
right? I
That's
mean,
right.
that's a pretty shitty thing to dump on a kid in school, of all places.
Yeah, it's just incredible. And I think it was a lad called Joe that told me about this originally. He was going to a school not far from here, private school, and he said he had to have a lesson on toxic masculinity, how being male, you've got this inherently toxic trait within you. But it's funny, isn't it? Because it's the society that's actually toxic. They're creating this toxicity by talking
Exactly.
about it and condemning them for being toxic. That's the real toxic message from the people
Exactly.
actually projecting it. So
And
it's madness.
one of the things that it's so frustrating. It must be for you, but it was for me just going through all your stuff, your book and your website and things like that, and your coaching. You are so pro women. And I think one of the biggest challenges that men have in America is that if you want to be a strong male figure, you want to be a strong father, you want to open doors for women, you want to cook, you want to be a good husband, you want to be supportive. If you want to be a good man, have courage, right? That is somehow frowned upon as
Mm.
anti-woman. And that was one of the things I got from your training and from your stuff is that, you are very, very pro women by building a strong man, a strong husband, a strong father, a strong member of society. That can only help society and women, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I am very pro women. I think, and I said this is where the healing of men comes in as the healers, is if they can reignite their own minds, restore themselves to who they were. Actually, let me reword that. To remember who they are at their core, a remembering of who they are.
Yeah.
They can restore the world. All that we see, it may sound far-fetched, can be eliminated. It can be, we can have a greater good restored, but it's going to be the men that have to step up. But to answer your question more in depth, I think women have, they're not sure of who they are now either. Because if men aren't, then women can't be, because we're two sides of the same coin. And I think my attacks have come from women that are very bitter, very resentful. But I would say to the guys out there, and I got asked a similar question by another great American, and I said to them that you have to ignore it. You have to ignore it and go out there and set your own standard and your own code. You have to be a man of honor and do the things you really believe in. And you will attract the right women, and you'll attract the women that get it. They'll understand it. They'll feel it, and they will just be drawn to them. I know the young guys that I've coached over many years are with great women now, and they understand the two parts of each other that come together as a whole, and it's a beautiful relationship, and it's what it's meant to be. But we almost like the final days of Rome here, where they were getting women to fight dwarfs in the Colosseum and women fighting men in the Colosseum, and there was all this blood and mayhem, and that was just before the whole thing fell apart. So we want to be careful. We want to start on this now, or there'd be nothing to start. It's yeah, it's a catastrophe going on. There's no doubt about it.
Simon, you hit absolutely 100% the nail on the head. And something that I've been beaten to death about is that's my mantra is for God's sake, how many times have we heard if you don't pay attention to history, you are prone to repeat it. And we are
Yeah.
repeating history. And you mentioned earlier about the Greeks and the Romans, and what I what ideals they have. When you look at the statues and you look at the history of what they created. I mean, the Roman Empire was incredible for what they
Mm,
built. And then they completely went off the rails. I mean, it completely imploded on themselves. And I think of the movie Gladiator, the old movie Gladiator with Russell Crowe, and
mm,
they despised him because he was a strong, principled man of massive courage. And when they stopped being able to control him, is when they wanted to destroy him.
Mm,
And that's what we see in our society here. I mean, in the
yeah.
States, is if you're a strong man and you stand out for your values and for society and for what you believe in, wow, you just get your ass kicked. It's bizarre.
It's the same here. It's the same here. We're celebrating cowardice and weakness, and we don't celebrate courage and integrity and being strong. And wasn't that this wasn't I don't know if you've seen that great series, 1883, Gary.
Yeah.
But there's a line in there. The girl says that weak men would rather guilt the strong than become strong themselves. I love that quote, and as I say, I've learned it off
Yeah.
by heart because I read it enough
Yeah.
times and wrote it down, and it's so true. And that's where we're at now. They'd rather
Yeah.
guilt the strong than become strong themselves.
And bringing that show up and the 1983 and Yellowstone and some of the other things that we're seeing happen in America, we're starting to see this undercurrent of wanting to have that strong family, that matriarch, the strong men. I mean, the guy from Yellowstone, Rip, he's a British actor, right?
That's
You
right.
have you seen Yellowstone? Yeah,
I have,
Cole
yes.
Cole something or whatever. He's a freaking Brit, and he's a ginger. So it's so funny that he's got all this tucked up. But he has become such a chick magnet. I don't know what other term. I mean, women love that guy because
Mm,
he's strong, he has courage, he has discipline, and the other side absolutely despises him for the same reason.
yeah,
And so it's funny that you brought that up because there's a lot of undercurrent in America to get back to that we've gone, like you said earlier, the pendulum has just swung too far. We need to
yeah.
kind of bring it back.
Absolutely, that is like an overcorrection, isn't it? But it's as I say, it's strange that this has happened right across the Western world. So it's obviously planned and desired by certain people. We don't need to know who they are. I mean, people go onto this and they go down rabbit holes. I always say to people, you don't need to know. You just need to know it's wrong and make a
Exactly.
correction. You don't need to debate about some of these bizarre and sick things that are going on in society. You don't need to debate them. You just know that they're wrong. Your conscience will tell you that it's wrong, and then you just take a counter stance against it by turning your back on it. But yes, it's I also when we look at screen heroes, I also for me this is the epitome of masculinity was King Aragorn in Lord of the Rings,
Mm. Mhm.
the protector. The man that didn't take the throne straight away. He proved himself. He
Yeah,
sacrificed himself. He did things for the greater good. He was loyal to the one woman in his life, and even in temptation, he would stick by her, even when he didn't see her for ages. I love that character, Aragorn. He was
yeah,
just such a fantastic idea of what a man could be. Wonderful.
yeah. And what did they do to him? They
Yeah.
destroyed him, because of what he was such a powerful man without being overtly beating his chest and trying to
Mm,
be over powerful or show all his power. If anything, he restrained it. He had as
yeah,
much power
he
as he
did.
wanted, but yet he chose to restrain it because he knew that like you say multiple times on your website and during this conversation, and when you talked about your earlier life, it's not the dude with the big muscles and the and loud and outrageous. That's not the leader. That's not courage. You're usually the most fearful when you're being like that. And he was not. He was the opposite. He was an outstanding character. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, and that's for the bodybuilding route. I've been there. I won a title at 19 years old, the Southern England title. And I always tell the story. I stood on stage and I felt more frightened than ever because now I relied on how I look for any courage. So which wasn't courage at all. So I've been down that route. But I think that's what men do. They're told to cherry pick an area they feel comfortable in, whether it's physical prowess, wealth and power, mastery of a craft, whatever it may be. And I think they're just distractions. I think they're distractions from the voice that says you could be so much more if only you just master your fear. I was around the bodybuilding community for years and I never ever saw a secure bodybuilder ever. They were all incredibly insecure, incredibly insecure. They were all dying to be men. I mean, I haven't seen them for decades, but I'm sure if they ever get around to listen to this, they'll be most shocked. But if they're really honest with themselves, it's true because that was me and that was them, and we could have been so much more. And we need to move on quickly from things that keep us stuck in one place, because you start to wither and die there.
Yeah. I think coming back to the fear, you know, my family's been in the movie business for a long time, and I was never enamored by actors and actresses and these famous people because I always saw them, even as a kid, because I was young when I was around all these famous people. It was like they just seemed so scared to me, and I had no idea what that meant. I was 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. But that was the vibe I picked up was fear. Like all you guys are worried about the next actress or the next actor or not getting that role, or you're constantly paying pretend. And I
That's really
think,
perceptive for that age, Gary, isn't it? To pick that
yeah,
up.
and it felt weird to me, and I still feel it to this day. But don't you think that social media has allowed people now to have this fake courage? They can be this defender of whatever bullshit they think is the next thing they're supposed to protect. Yet at their base, they're just frantic, scared little children.
Yeah, well, if you can't find true virtue in your life, you're going to have to fake it by finding some societal acceptable way to portray it to the public, huh, in safety.
Yeah, yeah. And it's not fake it till you make it. It's just plain old fake it, right? I mean, it's
Absolutely.
just like so crazy.
Absolutely. In fact, you just move
So
further away.
what are you seeing as any sort of glimmer? Are you seeing anything that you could say, Gary, I'm hopeful because maybe you're seeing more people come to you, or you're seeing the people that do come to you, you're starting to see more passion to find that courage to be that man to bring things back. Is there any light at the end of the tunnel, or is it just a train?
No, there is a light, and I can put it into an age group if you want to. I can say, have to say, the older guys are so conditioned and they're so frightened they normally won't change. You get some. I'm not going to put everybody into the same basket. Some are great. I've coached a lot of guys, 50, 60, and they've changed their lives around and jumped on board, and their marriages are better. They're better fathers, grandfathers. But the real shift I see from guys that are really leaning into this stuff is from the ages of, I would say, 25 to 35, maybe a little bit younger. Those guys have had enough. They've had enough of being ridiculed, suppressed, walked all over, and they're looking for something. They've been in therapy, and they think this is just not working for me. And they're the ones I see the biggest potential now. Sometimes they're younger, but I train a 15-year-old out. I mean, he's great. He's standing up in class saying, I don't believe what you're saying to the teacher. I don't come to school to hear this political opinion, which is just fantastic because
Yes,
now he's doing it, other people are standing up and getting involved, which is what happens, isn't it? It's a domino effect.
yes,
One person
yeah,
stands up with courage. Courage is
yeah.
contagious. It's a beacon. Somebody else does it. So yes, I'm very hopeful they're not particularly young. I guess they're around 24, 25 to 35 years old. They're really leaning into it. And I think religion can be great, but I also think that religion has got a bit insipid. I think it's got a bit weak. So I can only talk for the UK here and Europe. So they're kind of they're interested in the lessons of religion, but they're also don't want to go along with the some of the ideologies that you get in the church or elsewhere. So I'm also getting people that are interested in religion leaning in, but they also want something like because all we're really teaching is chivalry. If somebody said
Yeah.
to me at the core, what is it? I'd say it's just chivalry. It's just Bushido. It's just the way of the warrior. It's just we're just coming up with basic human values and we're just putting them on steroids. And we're going out into the world and sending guys out there with these weapons, and they are weapons. They're weapons against tyranny. They're weapons against fragility.
Yeah. I love that that's happening there. And interestingly enough, in America, the latest polls, which you can take polls forever you want, but there's a very big groundswell of even the 15 to 25-year-olds that are saying, I don't know, man. I watched all those people above me. doing all this crazy stuff, and I'm just not feeling it, and
Mm,
like we talked about with 1883 and 1923 and Yellowstone and a lot of these other things, they're seeing that stuff and they're like, I kind of like that stuff
yeah.
better, right? And I know you're telling me it's bad, and I know you're telling me it's wrong, but my gut and my instinct is telling me that it's right. And I love what you're doing because I think you're just helping them expose just their natural instinct of who they are. And that's huge.
Yes, and I can tell you, Gary, as well, when once they remember who they are and they've got a grip on it, they can't let it go. That's it. It's like they kick the door wide open of who they're supposed to be and how they're supposed to act. They've seen they've been living in illusion, some sort of falsehood, and they just kick the door wide open. There's no going back. I don't know any of the guys I've coached that have gone back to how they were. They just can't do it because it's like walking back into a false self. It's just not possible. So,
Because the truth of the matter is you can't go against your nature.
no.
You just can't go. You could fight it, you could try to drink it away, you could drug it away, you could beat yourself up, you could marry someone who wants to kick your ass every day, but at some point, and you hope it doesn't come out in a negative way. A lot of what we're seeing in America, especially, because thank goodness we have lots of guns here. You guys could use some.
We
Unfortunately,
really could.
you could really use some. I wish we could send you a few million of them, but we're seeing a lot of it that because it's so suppressed and repressed, or whatever the word is, that a lot of this stuff is coming out in a very evil, negative way. But there isn't any other outlet. We don't have a Simon Lee here who's trying to help these people, these young men and these men find their true compass and help them with their getting back to their roots and their instincts. So the only way to do it is through craziness, and it's scary.
Mm. Yes, it is. It is. And what is that craziness? It just takes place within gangs, within the swing of the pendulum. Going after extreme relationships, looking at women in an extreme way, using them in an extreme way. We got a really serious problem here with that. And it's going back to that King Aragon, that classy king and healer. That the rip, the people with a bit of integrity, with a bit of standards, to be tough and stand up against injustice. But it's scary for guys. That's the truth. That's what they don't want to admit. They want to say, I'd be scared to take that kind of responsibility for the world. Whether they're scared or not, that's your responsibility as a man. That's why you're here. That's why you've been put here, is to be that beacon of light for everybody else and be the protector. Be the man of courage and and it's not even for yourself. I always tell guys, your strengths and your talents are not for you, they're for everybody else. That's why you work on them. That's why we get up in the morning and train. That's why we push ourselves, because we want a society that's equally disciplined, courageous, and compassionate all around us. So we're sweating for other people. It seems like it's for us, and many men do it for themselves, but it doesn't go very far. It's a very short fuel. It burns out very quickly. But the long-term fuel is the one where you're doing it for service of other people, for your society, for the future.
You talk a lot about uh, anxiety and depression, and it's really tough to be courageous, and it's really tough to be a leader of anything, right? If you're just wallowing in depression and you're just full of anxiety. So when you're working with your guys, how are you helping them through this? I know they'd rather just be drugged up, for anxiety medicine and depression medicine, but I mean, how are you helping these guys? Because it's tough for a lot of guys. Mental illness is really bad in America. I mean, it's tough for guys to admit that they've got depression and anxiety, isn't it?
It is tough. It is tough. I mean, I changed the conversation on it. To me, I mean, I suffered from anxiety very early on in my childhood, so I know all about anxiety and depression. But I didn't realize that they're just nudges in the side to get you to look at something that's not working. They're not a
Mm,
curse. It doesn't mean you're
mm.
weak or you're born fragile, like I was told. It just means that there's something in your life you need to look at. That's it. That's the message. If you're suffering from anxiety or depression, something's not working. And I have to be honest with you, Gary, that a lot of the guys that come through our training, they never suffer from that again, ever, because they've actually realized they were living a false self, a false life. A lot of the anxiety and depression is the nudge at that. It's the reminder that that's not who you are.
The most courageous guys, they're in your training and stuff. Anxiety really doesn't have a place to rest inside that. Wouldn't that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Mm. People haven't even got the basics right, and they're thinking that they've got these things wrong with them. They're not even doing any physical movement. They're not eating properly. They haven't even got any code of honor. They've got no compass, and yet they're wondering why they're suffering. You've got to have the basics in place at least. And that would normally eliminate most things.
So true. I see that in America. I think that's one of the biggest things is there's so much fear in people here. People are so fear. I think so many people don't know why they're even lashing out. And it's because they've lost their moral compass. They're so easily led one way or the other. They're so easily manipulated that they're fearful of maybe looking inside and seeing what they know is right because it goes against what their people
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
do, right?
Um, yeah, it's a thing we're seeing all over, isn't it? It's just that how long can you stay as the man you're not supposed to be? That's the question. How long can you stay that way? How long can you sit in that character you were never meant to be? It's the worst suffering. The suffering is not facing fear. The suffering is never facing it and sitting in your perceived place of comfort and security. And there's nothing safe about it because I've tried to stay there, and your dreams and desires just die and they become just a faint echo in your dreams. Yeah, there's no solace there,
What are
no
you doing
peace.
as far as nutrition? You touch on nutrition, and I was just curious. It seems like you're doing a whole body, a whole world, a whole physical, mental, spiritual. You're doing a whole approach to these men. Where's nutrition come in there? What role does nutrition play with what you're doing?
Yeah, very much so. Because I think if a man's going to do great noble things, he's got to master his senses, and we tend to be drawn to food for emotional reward, for emotional upset. Oh, I've had a bad day. I've had a good day. They're always looking at ways to indulge. But if you can master your palate, I remember reading about Gandhi. You look at someone like that as the epitome of courage, putting his own personal self at risk for the greater people around him. And someone asked him, "How did you go up against the British Empire? How was you able to exert so much courage?" And he just said, "I mastered my palate. I mastered my senses. That's it." And that made me a man of strength, and they couldn't control anything about me. So, for me, nutrition is that if you can control what you consume, everything else becomes a lot easier. And we have got specific ways of doing it, but at first we just say to guys, get all the processed food out of your diet just for a couple of weeks, see how hard that is. Just see how hard that is. If you can't pick it and eat it in its natural form, see how you get on. That's hard enough. And then we go into more specifics like intermittent fasting, eating twice a day, that sort of thing, and specific food group, depending on what a man's trying to achieve and what his lifestyle is. But yeah, and that's a good thing. I worked for a private healthcare company many years ago, and I had people coming in there. And I remember feeling the pain as they walked through the door, the trauma when they walked through the door. I've never felt anything like it. It was like a language without words where you could pick up on someone's trauma and deep-rooted stress. And I would give them what I thought was the greatest diet in the world. And it would, they could actually block themselves from losing weight by hanging on to their trauma. It's quite incredible. So on a psychological level, they could control the cellular level and what happened to their body by hanging on to that trauma. And some of the conversations I had with people there, crying and breaking down, saying, "You don't understand. I was abused as a child. I hang on to this weight to protect myself. I don't know what would happen to my marriage if I lost that weight." And this is when I sat back and thought, wow, we can't do this. We can't just do nutrition. We've got to look at everything here. We've got to look at how people are thinking, what they're eating, how they're moving. We've got to look at everything. Otherwise, we're just going to get one piece of the puzzle. So for unlimited courage, for us, the nutrition side of things is extremely important because it just looking at someone's eating habits gives a lot of what's going on away.
I mean, you can't function well if your brain is cloudy and your body's clogged up and your system is out of whack. And the American diet, I don't know about the UK diet, but the American diet is just full poison, right? I mean, it's full
Mm.
poison. And we've got this guy, RFK Jr.,
Oh,
who
yes.
is, yeah, he's literally getting companies to remove poisons from their food. And people are mad at him about it because they don't like his other stances on like the
Wow. Oh,
vaccines
right.
and the fact of who put him into that role as, as secretary of, of health. And you just think to yourself, how bizarre are we that it's like right? It's just madness what's going on. God, you've been amazing.
Oh,
Uh,
so Gary,
oh, there you are. I've
sorry, we
gotcha.
cut out there. Yeah. Okay.
Let's see. Oh, I see. All right. I can't figure out how to expand you. Are you there? I see you now there.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah. You okay there, Gary? I don't know what
You
happened
hear
there. We
me
just cut
fine,
out.
right?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Yeah, I'm
Good.
good.
You hear me?
Okay, good. Yeah, that was bizarre. I
Yeah.
don't know. I just think, well, let's put it in context. You're all the way in England, and I'm here in America, and we're able to do this. A glitch here, the glitch there doesn't really make a bit of difference, does it?
No, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
It doesn't. But where I was going with that before we were glitched out, and probably the government glitched us out because they don't want us to talk about the stuff.
Yeah.
But a lot of what you come back to, and I just keep coming back to the fact that I love your mission so much because the courage does equal love. The courage does equal meaning. It does equal
Mm,
purpose. It all has a great foundation of giving, right? Why
yes.
do you think why do you think we've lost that in both of our societies, and why do you think people are so angry about it and are fighting against it so much?
Yeah, that's a really good question. That's a deep one. We could spend a whole podcast, I think, on that one. But yeah, I
Works
think
for
that,
me.
yeah, I think we started to look up to people. I think Thomas Sowell said it, one of your own political writers. He said it's not what we should be doing, it's who should be telling us what we should be doing. And I think that's where we've gone wrong. We started to look up to people in positions of power, and we wrongly assumed that position of power is equal to their morality. And of course, it's nothing to do with it. In fact, often it's the complete opposite. And I think we lost our way. We started to lose faith in ourselves and our own capabilities. We started to look elsewhere for people to tell us what to do because we felt afraid. And there was a meeting, which I describe in the book. There's a meeting of two minds there. There's one that's saying, I just want you to tell me what to do and help me. And the other one's saying, okay, well, I'll tell you everything you need to do, and I want full control over you. But that means you open the door to tyranny. And that's where the two met. So at some point, we lost complete faith in our own capabilities, our own power, and we handed them over to somebody else because we couldn't manage our own fear. But it doesn't have to stay that way. But I think, I don't know when it was, but at some point we became reliant. We gave away our self-sovereignty to people that actually are not capable of nurturing that and doing the best with it.
In my humble opinion, and of course we'll probably get ripped for this again too, but in my humble opinion, in the United States, it happened in the 60s. And I believe it happened with women's liberation. The government said we need more tax dollars. And the only way to get more tax dollars is to have more people work. And at the same time, we need to change the societal beliefs. So we've got two ways to do that. We're going to tell women to liberate themselves and burn their bras and go to work, and that will get us more tax money. And then we have to do something with their children, right? So let's take their children and put them in earliest daycare we can and keep them in school all day
Mm,
and then do after school while the woman's working, which is in effect breaking up the nuclear family. So now you've got the indoctrination of the kids. You've got the women and the men competing against each other. Women feel they aren't good enough. They have to compete against the men. The men think they have to be dumbed down because they don't want to seem like, oh my God, I'm this toxic masculinity macho asshole, right?
mm.
So I think we just started to see that happen here in America in the 60s. And so they spent a lot of time working on it. Um, and
It's interesting.
It's worked
Mm,
sensationally. It's worked
yeah,
spectacularly well because you can see the results of that, right? The children
yeah,
now have been babied and they have no moral compass, and then the kids are losing their minds with the being medicated. Women and men are at each other's throats. Men don't know what they're supposed to do. Women don't know what their roles are supposed to be. Men are going into women's sports. I mean, it's completely lost their minds.
yeah. I totally agree. It's insane. But we can recognize that, can't we? We can recognize it, and we can. And people say to me all the time, "Oh, did you see on the news last night? So and so competed against so and so. It's so wrong." I said, "Why are you watching it? Why are you feeding it? Why are you giving light to it? If you're that against it, then just stop watching. What you starve dies, and what you feed, you give it life. So there's a lot we can do as individuals without even knowing it. Just these small decisions are quite have quite a big impact over time. But yes, it is crazy. It is crazy. But I think now is the time for change. I think people are seeing it. Young kids are seeing it. Young teenagers are seeing it.
Yeah, I
It's
think in our
got.
country, especially, I think the teenagers are starting to see that things don't feel right. It's not that
Mm,
they're getting fed different stuff. If anything, they're being fed worse stuff, worse food, worse social media, worse issues, societal issues, more fear. But I think intrinsically, like what you're all about, right? Just at their core, they feel something's not right. And now they're starting to ask questions, which is absolutely what the powers that be do not want the young people to
no,
do
no,
is
they
ask
don't.
questions. They want them to follow, right? And scream and be angry and riot and throw stuff. I got to ask you one last question. You've been so great with your time. I just appreciate it so much. And then
Oh
I
no,
want
it's a
to find out
pleasure.
about your book and stuff. But um, so if there's a last thought, Simon, that you'd love to share with the audience, um, there's something that meant something to you or something that you feel very strongly about, what would that last thought be for everybody?
I would say you can sit in the darkest of times. You can be on your knees in the darkest of times, and there's going to be a light there, and that light will get bigger. Hang on, stay where you are, and know that it will pass, and you'll be given a treasure in that storm. You'll be given a light, and that will become so significant, that light, that it'll have more meaning than anything you had so far up till that point. I hope that makes sense, but it's something I really believe in, as I've
I
coached some
love
men through
that.
the darkest of times.
And men are in a dark spot right now, aren't they?
They really are. They really are. And I have to do something, and I'm fully committed, and I'm going to put everything on the line for this. So I'm ready.
So tell me about your book real quick. So the title of the book is The Courage Project. And tell me a little bit about the book and what's in it and why we need to all buy it.
It's a call, really. It's a call to men to look at how we've created the society we now live in, to take some responsibility for it, even whether it's stepping back or being actively involved within it. It's a call to courage. So it's in three parts. The first is all about courage and that no man's a lone wolf. We're meant to be a brotherhood. What courage is. And the second part is the rise of cowardice and vice and how we got to where we are. And we've covered it and how we like pharmaceutically means we can sacrifice our children to protect adults, which is what sort of society would do that. And the last part of the book is about putting it into practice and how we can build our society from the ground up. And that is the project, the Courage Project, that every man can get involved in. It's a short read. I wanted people to consume it like a seminar in 3 to 4 hours. So I just wanted it to have a profound punch, some good quotes in there. But I'd like to say, Gary, actually, rather than people buy it, they can reach out to me on the website and I will send it to them for free in a couple of weeks. I'll send them the PDF download. So I'd like to give it out for free because I think it's an important message.
Well, tell us
So,
about the website because I went down the rabbit hole of the website. So I did see a lot of downloads that you had. There's a lot of free stuff on the website. I stopped saving stuff off the. I stopped stealing stuff off your website, like your Courage Manifesto. I
oh
stopped stealing
yes.
it. I'm gonna post it on. I'm gonna post it on the podcast, but there's a lot of fabulous stuff. I mean, first of all, you have three levels of training and they're very affordable. I was very pleased to see that you do have an entry level to what you're doing. I mean, I talk to a lot of coaches and a lot of authors
Mm.
and stuff, and sometimes I think, God, how is someone going to jump into that at that level? You have to have a lot of belief, right? Um, and your coaching is not only very affordable, you offer a lot. So tell us about your website and then how we can get that free download to the book.
Yeah, so I mean, the Courage Manifesto, as you mentioned, is on there. We've got a couple of other downloads. We got two more things coming up. So we've got the book download coming up, and they can always reach out to me. Anybody can at simon@unlimitedcourage.com or info@unlimitedcourage.com. We've also, just the end of this week, we've got the Forge coming up, which is a 6 week course on self-discipline, resilience, and courage. It's a taster course for 6 weeks, which is $297. So it's very affordable for all. And
Super,
then we're
yeah.
going to have a download of the book, a PDF, with some extras on there actually that I'm going to send out to people for free. And that's all coming up within a week and a half. It's all going to be on there.
I love it. So how do we find the book? How do we find Simon Lee? Where do we go to start helping men find themselves, men and boys?
Just go to www.unlimitedcourage.com and all the contacts are on there. As I say, you can contact me at simon@unlimitedcourage.com. You can reach out for any reason. There's me and my other head coach, Steve Head, who's equally a fantastic coach. So they can reach out. They just want to tell their personal story. Any problems they have, we want to hear from them because this is going to be a global movement and it's going to be an unstoppable force. Enough's enough. So I'll be pleased to hear from anybody.
Man, I love that so much. And I hate when podcasters say, "Oh, I was so looking forward to our chat." Whatever. But I really was looking forward to this one because I it absolutely touches at the core of my belief. I have two sons. I have two grandsons now. I have a
Wonderful.
granddaughter on the way.
Wonderful.
And my sons are men. My sons are very good people. And I know all their friends growing up because we were the parent house. We wanted to make sure the parties were at our house, the groups were at our house. We wanted to make sure everyone so I could see what was going on, right? So
Brilliant.
we always
Yeah.
threw the party. We always had the pool, right? And I'm so sad that so many of those great kids that I grew up with for the last 30 years, what's happening to them?
Mm,
It's tragic, Simon. It's tragic what's happening to our youth, isn't
yeah,
it?
it is tragic. It is tragic. It is tragic. We have to do something. Um, all we can do is be our best ourselves before we do it and see if we can guide others through our example and give them something better than what's out there, which won't be very hard at the moment. I'm sure you'll agree.
Well, that's why. I love what you're doing, and I'm so grateful because there are no leaders. We're just desperate for leaders. So let you be the leader, help you build more leaders. So, everybody, we've been blessed with some time with Simon Lee. Uh, please look for his book, The Courage Project. Uh, go to the website, look at what Simon's doing. If you have teens, get them involved. It's very affordable. Yes, he's on the other side of the world, but who cares, right? We could do this.
We're all
And
online.
I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
right, it's all online, everything's there. So, Simon, honestly, thank you so much for doing
It's
what you're
been an honor,
doing.
Gary. Thank you for having me on. Means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, guys, appreciate it so much. See you next time. Take care.